I don't know if you've heard the news, but the Kinnikuman anime is returning. And that is awesome news. Although for some of you, that might not be news at all because you've never heard of Kinnikuman. I absolutely love this series. It's easily one of my favorites. It has been for a long time, and I've been wanting to talk about it. And so this news was just awesome to me. Got me very excited. But most of you watching probably don't know what Kinnikuman is, and that's not surprising. It's relatively obscure outside of Japan because it was never localized in English or most languages. And the anime ended a decade before anime started to grow in America in the early 2000s. However, the sequel to Kinnikuman did make its way to America, where it was called Ultimate Muscle. And you may have heard or seen that anime. But it was for kids, it was done by 4 kids, and it wasn't very good. It did not stay very true to the source material, so most of you probably have not had a great experience with this manga/anime, but you should still be excited for this upcoming anime. First, I want to talk about what Kinnikuman even is. The manga started publishing in the 80s, and it's a very old story, and you can't get the manga in English. The manga is only in Japanese. I myself am not even done with the series because it's you can't really get it very easily in America, and I've been in Japan for the past 5 months, so I can get it here, but too busy to read anything, so it just be that way sometimes. But what is it? What even is Kinnikuman, and why should you care? Kinnikuman is a story about this guy, Suguru, or Kinnikuman. He is an alien, like lots of shonen protagonists, and he was similarly to Goku, actually, or Superman, or whatever kind of story. He winds up on Earth, separated from his people, where he grows up to be a hero. But here's the twist, the part that I love about the story. It's all about professional wrestling. The characters fight via wrestling, and they do all their fightings within rings. It's a shonen manga, an anime, formed around professional wrestling. And I absolutely love that. Anybody who knows me knows that I love professional wrestling. Ever since I was a kid, it's been one of my favorite things. I love watching it all the time and keeping up with it. I still do. Though not as much as when I was a kid, for sure. So when I found out about Kinnikuman, that there was this anime that was also about professional wrestling, I was all in. And I'm so glad that I got into it and then I stuck with it. And then I watched the entire original anime. That was a little difficult to find online, but I found it and I watched it. Most of the anime from the original anime is not even available online at all that I can find. But what I did watch was amazing, and it made me just want to get into the series. I watched the 4 Kids sequel, even though it wasn't very good, just because I liked it. I liked this property, and it just made me sad that I was never really able to get full access to the anime and manga for this series that I think is just so awesome. But throughout the story, this Kinnikuman, he gathers a bunch of friends in the typical shonen way. He encounters them, they're villains, he beats them, they become his teammates, and then they encounter stronger and stronger enemies. It's a classic shonen, and in fact, I believe it's a pioneering shonen, and it did a lot of these things that we now see as tropes, but it did them before they even were tropes. And I think you definitely can see a lot of inspiration on later works as you read and watch Kinnikuman. And to be honest, Kinnikuman has always been kind of my guilty pleasure as an anime. It doesn't have the most amazing plot. It's not, incredibly intricate like a lot of stories can be these days as the standard for anime. It's just higher. But It's so fun. It's so unbelievably fun. It's very funny. The characters are so endearing and interesting and well designed. Look at a few of these characters. These are a couple characters that I actually really like, and Pentagon and Black Hole. Pentagon is an American hero, which I'll get to in a second. But the character design is not only phenomenal in this series, One Piece level character design, but it's pretty funny too. One of the first villains that we encounter in the story is just a crab person. And then the next villain we encounter is, get this, a urinal. It's an anthropomorphic urinal. And if that's your first time hearing that, buddy, it's time to read Kinnikuman. And you might not even believe me, but I'm telling you, it gets crazier from there, and it's amazing. It's such a fun ride to be on, and if you stick with it, I'm telling you, it genuinely gets better. Each arc, the writing and the art especially, get better and better. The authors, because it's actually two friends who work on it together, the authors of Kinnikuman, they started this serialized manga while they were still in high school. So yeah, their ability to craft an intricate plot with amazing art was a little limited at the time, but now those two men are a little older. It's been 40, 50 years since they started. Their writing and art is exceptionally better, and I'm not even finished yet. I can only imagine how great it's been since I left off. I want to catch up with the series so badly, but time is against me here. Which is why I'm so happy the anime is returning. That could make it a lot easier for me and for you. But overall, this story is Kinnikuman. It is a classic shonen. It's got a lot of those classic shonen attributes. If that's what you're into, you are going to love this series. But I think the main part that I love about it is the creativity in the story, in the characters. I mean, there's the structure might be your classic shonen, but so much of it is just so unique, and I love it so much. But why should you care? There's a lot of shonen out there you could be watching. There's a lot of new ones, and this one's old. It's from the 80s. Why should you care? Why is it even coming back? Well, I want to talk for a minute about the themes of this story. The themes that make the story stick out to me and make me stay with the story all the way through. Of course, one of those themes is friendship. Not surprising. How is that any different? Well, I want to actually think about that for a second. Those of us who watch anime, we know that friendship and friendship power is a huge trope in anime. It wasn't always, but it's such a big trope that a lot of people don't like it, and it's starting to actually fade from modern anime and manga, and we can talk about the implications of that another time. But I want to talk about why that became a trope. A lot of people know it's a trope, they see it in the anime, but do we actually really think about the message that the author is trying to get across to us when they use that trope in their writing? In this anime, Kinnikuman draws strength from his friends, and when his friends are around him and when they need him, he becomes stronger and is able to save the day. On top of that, when he defeats his opponents, most of the time they become his friends. Again, that's a trope. We see that in anime. Villains get defeated and then they become heroes and allies and good guys. And a lot of times it's not written super well and people really hate on it these days. But I think there's some real value there to talk about. And I want to dwell for a second on this idea of friendship, this trope that I think was pioneered by Kinnikuman and is used in so many anime that you and I watch. What sort of message do you think it sends to somebody when an enemy is defeated and they become a friend? Think about the kind of real world implications that message has. We've watched anime, we've read manga, books, outside of Japan even, when the villain is defeated and so is killed or is sent to jail or has some other permanent consequence for his actions, which oftentimes is well-earned consequences for the bad actions that the villain has done. But think of the message that's sent when the hero defeats a villain who deserves serious punishment, maybe even death, but instead the hero reaches out his hand to the villain and offers friendship, forgiveness even. That happens a lot in Kinnikuman, and a lot in other anime I've seen too. I think the reason a lot of people hate on that sort of trope is the same reason a lot of people don't like the Christian idea of forgiveness. They feel like it's not earned. But that's the point. It's not earned. It's not supposed to be. Forgiveness can't be earned. Then it's not forgiveness. If somebody earns your forgiveness, then you don't actually really need to forgive them. Forgiveness is lent out to people who don't deserve that forgiveness. A lot of people feel like that's unfair. And again, it is. It's supposed to be. So why should we do things that are unfair, that people don't deserve, that people haven't earned? Why should we do something like that? There's a lot of reasons, but I think there's two main ones. First is, forgiveness is not for the other person, it's for you. It's to help your heart. It's to help you move past whatever the person's forgiven, for whatever the person has done against you. But we don't have the ability to forgive somebody who's harmed other people. Who are we to say you are forgiven to somebody who's gone and hurt someone who's not us? And we might not really have that ability, but in these stories, it's the superhero who does these acts of forgiveness. And they do have that power. They're superheroes. They have lots of powers that we don't. And superheroes, as they emulate Christ, forgive people for their wrong actions when they really shouldn't have the right to be forgiving those people. Something famous about Jesus in the Bible was that he would forgive sins. When the Bible clearly said that only God could do that, the humans couldn't do that. But Jesus did it anyway. He stretched forgiveness out to people that only he could do. He gave forgiveness to people in ways that normal people could not give forgiveness to others. And similarly then, the superheroes in anime, like Kinnikuman, they have the ability and the love in their hearts to stretch out and give forgiveness to people, to villains who don't deserve it, and certainly haven't earned it either. And so what does that do to villains when you forgive them? Instead of just tossing them in jail or killing them, if you were to forgive them, to stretch out your hand and say, regardless of what you've done, I want you to be my friend now, and start turning away from your bad actions and start doing good actions, what does that do to the villain? Well, anime, like Kinnikuman, they tell us that the villain turns from doing wrong actions, starts doing good actions, and can become a better person. But is that true? A lot of people think it's not. A lot of people see these tropes in anime and manga and they say it's unrealistic, it's unearned. Real villains wouldn't act that way. But as a Christian, I do think that's how it works. I do think when people are offered forgiveness and acceptance instead of just punishment, they do desire to change who they are out of thankfulness, out of gratitude, not necessarily out of obligation. So I love the message that we see in Kinnikuman. We see it in other anime too, but like I've said before, I think Kinnikuman really did some work in pioneering this trope, which is a trope I like, and I'm a little sad that it's starting to go away. But to be fair, the modern villains faced in anime are typically not just humans. But the other major theme in Kinnikuman is unity and hope. I suppose that's two things, but I'll wrap it up into one. I want to mention something about Kinnikuman and his friends, because I think it paints an interesting picture. Kinnikuman originally is by himself with no friends. He has another alien who comes down, finds him, and tries to be a mentor figure to him, but he doesn't really have any friends. He's ostracized from his community. And as he goes about doing his professional wrestling and fighting others, he meets wrestlers from across the world. His first friend is from England. Then he meets another friend from America, then one from China and Germany, Russia even. And he keeps making more and more friends. He even makes a Native American friend. His teacher is for a while is a Native American from Hawaii. He makes acquaintances and friends of people across the world. And at first we might not think a lot about that. But I think that is such an important message in our world right now. I believe in our world today, division and disunity are becoming more normalized and common than they've been in the past. Of course, there's always been issues in the world, there's always been division, there's always been disunity. That's just always existed in our world for as long as humans have been around to argue with each other. But I think in our world today, those are becoming more normalized. They're becoming more accepted. It's becoming more normal to just divide people. It's seen as even a good thing. Now, of course, division is sometimes necessary if people don't want to unify, if they're even fighting unity, then division is just going to happen as a consequence. But I don't think we should ever see that as an ideal. I don't think we should ever see division as the best possible way that things can turn out. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it even has to happen, but I think it should always be something like a last case scenario, or if it does happen, we should be spending time trying to figure out how to stop it from happening and bring those who are causing division back into a place of unity. But I'm not going to get all theological and political and philosophical. I just want to talk about Kinnikuman and say that maybe I'll state the obvious here, but there's a lot of division in the world, and it seems like people aren't fighting it so much as just feeding into the fire. And what I like about Kinnikuman is it's so against division. It's so much about unity. The main cast of characters includes people from literally around the world, and they're all friends. They're all very different. They all have different backstories that come from different places, but they're all friends. And these characters, of course, you'll notice right away, a lot of them are kind of stereotypical members of their respective countries and peoples, because the story is coming from a Japanese perspective. But I think that's okay. Kinnikuman offers us the opportunity to not take ourselves so seriously, which is hard to do sometimes in today's world. We want to defend ourselves. We want to stand our ground all the time about every little issue and die on every hill we come across. But Kinnikuman gives us the chance to just sit back and laugh and enjoy life for a moment. The first two American heroes we meet, who are the only American heroes we meet for a while, are a cowboy and a football player, and that's their entire identity for a while. And I'm neither of those things, even though I am an American, but that's okay. I don't need to be offended and upset or feel as though I'm being misunderstood. I can just laugh, be okay with it, and enjoy the story. Those heroes don't necessarily represent me like the story might think that they would, but I can still enjoy the story. I can put down my walls for a minute and be okay with that, because I think that's somewhat necessary for unity. There's a couple points I want to get at that I didn't touch on enough that I want to get to. The first being this idea of unity. And I'm not trying to say, I get it's complicated. I get that the world is complicated, and I'm not trying to say things are simple. I'm just saying that unity is something that we should hope for and strive for. And I think that division should be seen as a problem, not a solution, even though I get that it's complicated. I really do. And I also want to say, when it comes to the stereotypical representations that you might see in Kinnikuman, and these sort of things we see all over the world. I really do believe that if we want unity to happen, we really do need to put our guards down, our walls down, and be okay with a certain amount of misunderstanding, as long as it's done in good faith and nobody's trying to overtly hurt or demean people, which sometimes does happen. But Kinnikuman is definitely not trying to do that. It's all just good fun. They're not trying to genuinely hurt anybody. But here's something I think is lost on a lot of people. We can't expect somebody to fully understand us if we don't know them at all and they don't know us. We got to reach out that forgiveness, that grace. We have to reach out and try to be friends with people before they can understand who we are and how we want to be treated. We can't expect people to understand all the nuances of our culture and who we are if we don't try to communicate with them beforehand. And so before you get upset at people for not understanding you, make yourself available to them as best you can, and try to be forgiving. Because I get it, being represented as a cowboy is a lot different than being represented as some like racist, dumb image that other cultures might have to deal with. I get that that's different, but I think there's still a principle here about forgiving people and trying to reach out in friendship and with people before expecting them to really fully understand who you are. I hope that clears up a little bit of what I meant. And all these friends, perhaps you heard me say earlier, were former enemies. The Englishman, the Russian, the Chinese character, all of these people were originally enemies, some of them very violent and evil enemies that Kinnikuman had to face in the ring and bring them down before that they could become friends. But they did become friends. Kinnikuman beat them, and he extended out his arm to them and said, I don't care what you've done. Come be my friend now. Come join my group of friends and stop doing bad things. And they do. They do take him up on that offer. And I think that's really beautiful. Maybe kind of overlooked a lot in anime in general, but something that's very important. Think about what would happen to the world if we did that. If instead of hoping for our enemies to go to jail or to die or to disappear, if instead we put out our hand and gave them the opportunity to become our friends, maybe the world would change. And now, of course, even though they're all friends, they don't all believe the same things. In fact, almost every arc, the friends still have disagreements and choose different sides on things, but they still remain friends. And so that's why you should care that the anime is coming back, because I think the world needs it to come back. We don't see a lot of anime or manga like this, not today, not even in general in history. Anime and manga is usually about Japanese people, which makes sense. It's made by Japanese people. I wouldn't expect it to be any different. But Kinnikuman is different. It's about the whole world. And it's about people coming together, becoming friends, despite their differences. And I think that's very important, because I think we should be doing that, and we're not. But I'm not some crazy idealist. I am a realist at the end of the day. I don't think there's a utopia around the corner where everyone from around the world holds hands and sings Kumbaya around a campfire. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. But Kinnikuman is a story of hope. It's not a story about untethered idealism where everything is just perfect because we smile. It understands that there are genuine and understandable issues that divide people, but it offers up a hope that we can overcome them. And so that's why I'm excited that the anime is coming back, and why I think you should watch it. Why is it coming back? I've mentioned before there already was an anime, so why are they bringing it back? Well, I mentioned that there was an original anime, and I mentioned that there was a sequel, but a lot of people don't know that the sequel performed not all that well, and so the authors went back to the original story and continued it, and it's still ongoing to this day after literally 40 years. It's insane. Of course, there's been breaks in between. It hasn't been continuously ongoing, but these guys are still mad lads. I mean, I've been alive for half that time. That's a long story. Now, One Piece and JoJo's are impressive, but I think Kinnikuman deserves a place on that list too. And that story, that continuation of the original story, has never gotten an anime adaptation, despite the fact that the series has been very popular in Japan for the longest time. These days, of course, not as much because there's a lot of time and energy thrown into the big houses, the Demon Slayers and all that of today, My Hero Academias, But for a lot of the time that this manga has been in paper, it's been very popular. Just not as much outside of Japan, unfortunately. But this new anime could change that, and I'm so excited. I don't know when this anime is for sure coming out. A lot of people are saying it's going to be this year sometime. When it does come out, I'm going to make a Everything You Need to Know video because I really want people to watch this anime. I'm not sure if it's going to start right away with the new content. I'm almost thinking it won't because that might make it hard to get into for new people. So I might just start right from the beginning. But wherever it starts from, you should watch it. And you should encourage other people to watch it too. And while you watch it, think about how it could affect your life, how it could change you. Think about how all of us could better treat our neighbors today. I'm not perfect. Nobody really is on the planet today. But I think we all have something to learn from Kinnikuman. We can all hope for a better future, even when it seems unlikely. We can all extend our hand out to people across the world and give them the opportunity to become our friends. And we can hope beyond everything that the people who are our enemies today might one day become our friends. And that's why I love Kinnikuman, and I think you will too. So thank you so much for watching. Watch some anime and read your Bibles. Thank you.